Welcome back to the show, everybody. I'm your host, Dr. David Hooper, and today I am so excited to introduce my great friend, James Hutchinson. James is a retired professional ice hockey player, former personal trainer, and now a financial advisor with Game Plan Financial. James and I go way back. We've gone through some good times, some challenging times. So I'm really excited to get into James's story today because it is incredible, so transformational, so inspiring. James, welcome to the show, mate.
Hello, mate. Thanks for having us on, and I hope I can be of value to you and your audience.
You certainly will be. I'm certain of that. You're one impressive fella. To kick us off, I always like to ask a question about the podcast title. So the podcast title is The Unstoppable Introvert. So I'm always really interested to know, what does unstoppable mean to you or look like to you?
I think I can probably say that there's certain weeks that go by where I feel like I'm unstoppable today. I've got everything done on the to-do list. I've got to the gym. I've took the kids out. I've ticked all the boxes for being unstoppable, I guess is going to be the word for it. Those weeks where everything's in harmony and it's working well, that's unstoppable. The issue is I want to be able to repeat that every single week of my life, and they seem to be like buses. I might get a few good weeks in a row, and then it's you skip the gym or you do something. I'm not unstoppable anymore. So I think unstoppable is, for me, I can control it. If I can be disciplined, I can make myself feel unstoppable.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that discipline and consistency is certainly aligned with mine as well. That's for sure. And if people are just tuning in today and they haven't seen you before, they haven't seen you on social media, that type of thing, how do you introduce yourself to them, like who you are and what do you do, that type of thing?
I'd probably say I'm James. I'm a bit of an odd bod. I don't know. I'm James. I'm a retired professional ice hockey player. When I got the boot from that and I wasn't very good, I tried my hand at personal training. Had a couple of successful years at that. Fizzled out, and then I'm trying my third time lucky financial advisor. Now hopefully this is me as a lifer, as a financial advisor, and I've moved on from jumping industries and spaces to work in.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get straight into that. The thing that always looks so impressive, the professional ice hockey player. That is,
average professional.
I'm not too sure about that. I was reading about all the things you've achieved. England, Great Britain, all professional. That is, for someone interested in sport, a dream to have on their resume. Where did that all start from? Were you really active at school and like a high flyer in sport at school, or what was that like for you?
Yeah, I think sport has always been a passion of mine from being knee high. I think I played football like everyone, loads of football at school, joining any sports I could, and then there was like a class assembly. The Whitley Warriors came in and did a presentation of what they did and give some free tickets out. So I went along with my dad, watched the game, like, oh, this is class, this, dad. And then sure enough, someone at the game puts the bite on you to join the club to learn to skate. And learn to skate, and I think you'd say the rest is history. I became a professional, and I left college at 17, 18, and went right the way through to about 30 or 32-ish. So yeah, that's how that came about. But yeah, I was definitely active, and still, although I'm not professional now, I wouldn't say so much sport, but being physically active is a non-negotiable every day for me. I can't function in my day-to-day unless I get some physical activity in the morning before I start trying to speak finance and numbers to people. I've got to clear the cobwebs off the old brain before I can get cracking.
Yeah. And are you talking about your daily routine then, in that you still fairly regularly include exercise in your day-to-day?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you retire, I mean, everyone's heard about it, the problems that professional sports people have when they retire, your loss of identity, your income's down, your mindset's not there, you're not getting the dopamine hits of the high of being a professional. You score a big goal, the crowd goes wild, you're right up. You're never going to replicate that in Joe Blogg's life, if you want to call it, or 9-to-5 lives. For me to not have the dips too much from retiring from this high coming down, I've got to do something in the morning just to give myself a bit of a boost, and it keeps you on the straight and narrow. I guess you hear too many horror stories of retired athletes going down the wrong path. So for me, it's a conscious thing that this is what I've done all my life. trained in the morning, I'm going to keep doing that no matter what I'm doing outside of that training to make sure this works more than physically. Really, it's to keep the brain going. And I think because that habit's ingrained from being a professional, if you stop it, there's going to be withdrawal symptoms. I call it withdrawal. I haven't had exercise. I feel minging. So yeah, that's my crack on the exercise, and non-negotiable to be unstoppable. As soon as you take the option and say I'm not doing it today, definitely not unstoppable that day. I'm very stoppable.
Very stoppable.
Yeah.
That's superb. And we'll definitely dive into that. But before we kind of skip ahead to what you're doing now, what was it like being a professional athlete then? Was it what we all would, for those of us interested in the sport, is it the life that you'd think, like this high performing lifestyle? How did you find it?
I mean, I loved it. I lived my dream. And looking back now, it's like it wasn't me. If I watch an old game on the telly or I show the kids clips on the internet or whatever, it's like, wow, that is like, I just see the little boy, me, living his dream. And the lifestyle of it was great. I mean, obviously the sport I played, I wasn't buying Rolexes every week and driving Bentleys. I was just making a living. But the lifestyle was awesome. You're getting to play every day rather than work every day. You're playing every day with your friends. And it was just, it was absolutely class. I loved it. It was the dream that I dreamt when I was a young boy. However, you got to wake up from every dream, and I woke up from that one. It's over, and it almost feels like it didn't happen. Other than when I get to spew about myself on things like this to you and relive it a little bit. But yeah, definitely was a dream. I should have probably finished that dream earlier than I did, because I turned absolute rubbish towards the end, and I hung on and hung on. It's left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth of the last memory. So I think I should have retired a bit earlier, but I've got no complaints. I lived my dream, and I wouldn't change a thing.
And what were you like as James the ice hockey player? Were you, I've only ever known you as, the personal trainer or the financial guru. Yeah, what were you like? Were you quiet and keep yourself to yourself, or were you, life and soul of the dressing room? Because I know you kind of led a lot of teams, like you were assistant captain and captain and things like that. What were you like?
You know what? I was probably quite loud in the dressing room, just because I absolutely loved every single day, and I couldn't keep my mouth shut. And it was just like, "Hey boys, we're going. It's great." I loved every day, so I was probably quite loud. I certainly had less worries then. I think that's probably not a sport thing. That's probably an age thing where you get more responsibility, more worries. But yeah, I was loud. I was confident earlier on. I think to play professional sport, you've got to have a bit of confidence, a bit of a swagger about you. And then that's the thing. Looking back now, it's if I watch an old video of an interview I've done or whatever, it's like, fucking hell, look at that guy's balls. He's got so much to say, and he doesn't worry about anything. Yeah, I was confident as a younger man, and I was quite a loud teammate in the dressing room.
I think it's a really interesting topic, this, because I feel like I'm exactly the same, and I didn't play at the level you did in football, far from it, but I captained every team I played for and was the loudest on the pitch, loudest in the dressing room. But then if you met me outside of that environment, people are stunned by that and think, very quiet and shy and timid and, all that sort of thing. Go on, what were you going to say?
Well, I totally agree with that, because I was on the ice in the dressing room. I was Mr. Sure, I knew what I was doing, could talk to anybody. Put me out on the street, and felt a little bit like I'm not as confident to talk to people, because it felt like, oh, I'm speaking to someone with a real job. I'm just this ice hockey player. I'm not supposed to have a brain. And I felt a little bit inferior to people. I mean, people might think that the other way around with a professional athlete, but it really did. I was like very timid to talk outside of the sports space, because I thought I wasn't adequately qualified to have those conversations. That affected my confidence outside of the game.
Yeah. And I think that's really interesting as well, that you were thinking that about other people, and other people are probably thinking that back to you. So it's really interesting. I think that we get in our own heads so easily, don't we? And we talk ourselves into these scenarios.
It's so true, and that's a weird thing that you just described. Then that me and whoever's having the conversation, I think the same things about each other. It's like, if we could just I don't know, have a sign on our head saying, I'm a little bit nervous to talk to you, or sort of something, and make everything clear, I think the world will be a lot better in terms of communicating with people, because there's mixed messages all the time. When you think someone's lacking confidence, they might come across a little bit rude because they don't say much. It's like, how to make these things clear so that no one has the miscommunications, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. What's the biggest takeaway from your ice hockey career that you've been able to move forward into your entrepreneurial ventures and things like that?
I think it's, don't get too high and don't get too low, because you're playing sport. You might win a big game one week and then lose a game the week after that you're supposed to win, and you can end up being like this.
Yeah.
So to try and take the rough with the smooth, don't get too high, don't get too low. Most of the things that I find myself worrying about, if you can take your head off a little bit and look at it from a bird's eye view, they're not real things to worry about anyway. So it's yeah, just don't get too high, don't get too low, and try and keep it even. It's very hard to do when you have a big, especially in business, if you have a big success. You're like, I feel like $1,000,000. I've learned that that's dangerous, because if you go wherever you go up, you've got to come down. So I think to try and keep yourself balanced, keep yourself grounded on whatever's going on around you, is beneficial for the long term. The peaks and troughs are no good for nobody, I don't think.
I think that's great advice, and I think a lot of people listening could really take that on board, because I think we let ourselves get so down. I mean, I still do it. Any setback at all, I'm just like on the floor, and then tiniest little win, and I'm excited again, and it's this yo-yo effect. That like neutral mindset is, yeah, I think could be really key for people. At what point did you know your career was coming to an end? Then was there a moment, or was it just this feeling?
There wasn't a moment, like, so I'd say I, I left Belfast in 2013, the Belfast Giants, and I dropped down a couple of levels as well. But I dropped down a level, and I kept dropping down levels in subsequent seasons, and I just couldn't perform. I didn't know at the time it was because I was finished, and it wasn't a physical thing that you might expect an athlete come to the end. Or I got slow, I couldn't, my fitness wasn't there, or whatever. It was here. I didn't have the grit. I didn't have the want anymore. It just wasn't there, and that was ultimately affecting the level that I was playing at. And say I did 4 5 years at that lower level, being terrible in my eyes. Every time the season finished, it was like, it's over, and that's not a good healthy way to be, waiting for something to be over, your life to be over, essentially. So that's when I decided, like, I'm probably better off putting my energy elsewhere and calling it a day on the ice hockey. And when I'm true with myself, it should have happened a few years earlier rather than hanging on. But yeah, no one moment, or I've lost a yard or whatever. I'd like to still think I've still got the pace, but I haven't tried it out lately. It was pure like a want, a headspace mentality type of thing. Whether it was because I'd started having a family then, I don't know, and the risks of playing a game like that, like broken noses and the injuries I've had, I don't know. I couldn't tell you what it was, but there was something that was missing that I just couldn't give it what I was giving it before. And it's $1,000,000 question to know what that was and if it could have been fixed. But it's too late for that now, and it was a good decision to retire when I did. Should have done it earlier, but still wouldn't have changed a thing. Even in those last years when I was crap, I made great friends. You get really close with teammates and got to travel, see a few different places. So still wouldn't change it, but probably should have been honest and quit a little bit earlier.
And what about the setbacks, or the challenges of being in a professional environment? You talked about injuries there, or spending time away from the family, that type of thing. What was some of the bigger setbacks that you had in your sporting career?
I mean, standard stuff like injuries are a setback, and you can get over the physical injuries quite well. What really set me back was, like, I got released a couple of times from. This is towards the end when I was starting to turn into a pile of shit. Sorry if you're not meant to swear on this podcast,
No,
but
you could.
like, I just getting released. I've done well so far, though. Getting released from a contract, so it was like, in ice hockey, or the contract I had at the time was like, you've got 2 weeks notice. So that's like, the team provides a house, a car, and a salary. You've
Wow.
got 2 weeks to replace those three things. And I managed to do it, but it was 2 weeks of worry, and it just whacks your confidence like that. And I think it has a knock-on effect the following season. I was a little bit, second guessing what I was doing. Am I really cut out for this? So yeah, the biggest knockbacks was getting released, injuries, and some get you negotiate with a team and they don't want to pay you the money that you think your market value is. That's a bit of a knockback too, and it really affects your mind and confidence. And I've said this multiple times, sport, I think, is 95% mental, any sport. If this is not right, it doesn't matter what condition your body's in, it's not going to follow. In those scenarios, try and overcompensate by getting into better shape, but it doesn't matter, because this is not right, that you only work on the other 5%, in my opinion. So, yeah, that's that.
I love that. I think that's true in everything. I think like the mindset, like in business or even relationships or whatever, it's key. It like everything else just follows it through. So that the mindset's so important. What would your advice be to those people who are listening and maybe are going through some sort of setback or challenge? Maybe not exactly what you went through, but similar kind of things. What would your advice be to them when it comes to actually, keeping moving forward?
I think what really helps is if you remove yourself from the situation and imagine that it's a family member or your best friend in that situation. What advice would you give to them? Because you're looking at it from a different angle, and you can see where things can be fixed and that it's not that big of a problem. You can still keep moving forward. But when you're in the mix, it's happened to you, can't see the wood for the trees sometimes. So I'd say try and take yourself out, like, right, if this happened to my brother, my sister, my best friend, wife, husband, whatever it may be, what advice would I give to them? And just keep telling yourself that advice. I think that is probably the simplest way to go about it. I talk a good game, but it's sometimes a little bit difficult if I'm in the mix and I'm in the shit and it's like, oh, what would I do here? Fucking hell, I'm in trouble. You've got to take a breath, step back, like what would my mate tell us to do in this scenario, and it tends to help, even if it's just a little bit of 5% ease on the burden that you're feeling. You've got that 5% to try and move forward and improve yourself a little bit.
Yeah, that's superb advice. I love that. Yeah, taking a step back and how would I advise someone or family member to do this? That's really great advice. And have you actually done that in practice then, or is that how you kind of deal with things?
It's how my best mate deals with things. He tells me that. Right. Listen to what I'm telling you. He tells me, because he's in the office next door. When I go in there, like, oh, what's going on? He's just like, sit down, settle down. It's not that bad, and he just breaks it down simply, and then he'll explain, look, it's easy for me to do because I'm not in the mixer here. I'm looking at it from a bird's eye view, and so I've taken it from him, and that'll definitely stick with us for life. That if you can just force your brain to think in different dimensions, it's not me, it's someone else. What would I advise that person to do who I really care about? Because I think not that you care about other people more than yourself, but I think it's you want to give, you want to help, and it's easier to transfer that to someone else rather than internally in my messed up brain.
Definitely, I completely agree. Now, I use that exact thing as like an accountability thing. So if I don't want to do something, I always think, oh, I'm doing it for someone else rather than just myself, kind of thing. So yeah, I really love that advice. When we're thinking about your career then, so you coming at the back end of the hockey, at what point did you start to think, right, I need to be thinking about what's next, and why personal training?
So it was after the first time when I got released from my contract, and I managed to secure another team, and I moved there, and then I thought, whoa, if I hadn't found this team, I'd be totally screwed. Because I had no education at that point. I'd never worked a day in my life other than playing ice hockey. So then I just started to think, what am I interested in? And naturally, when you're in sport, what do I do when I'm not playing sport? I'm working out to make myself better at sport. So that must be my passion, right? The working out bit. So I started qualifying as a personal trainer, and just because it seemed like an easy transition. But when I got into it, there's actually very little relevance between professional athletes and training members of the public. It was totally different. Not what I imagined. I loved it. I absolutely loved it at the time I was doing it, but it wasn't what I imagined. I wasn't able to, the highs of hockey, they weren't there from personal training. I wasn't getting them as much. I wasn't able to help as many people as I wanted, which gives me that natural high that I'm looking for. So I went down that route. Tried it for, probably about 8 years, I think. Enjoyed it, made a living from it, but there was still something missing, that I wasn't quite getting the really massive results for loads of people. And it's like, yes, I've scored a goal, I've got a big win here. There wasn't that there for me. And that's how I transitioned into personal training from the sport.
Before we get into like your business stuff, have you ever re-found that high? Or do you think nothing's ever going to come close to scoring in front of a crowd, that type of thing?
I don't think it's possible. I really don't think it's absolute euphoria where you're on top of the
Yeah.
world and it's just everything is amazing for it can last maybe a day, a week, a
Yeah.
minute, an hour, I don't know, but you get that feeling and there's in business you get some big wins, you get some big results, help a big business out, you're like, yes, I've done a really good job there, but it's still not getting anywhere near that ceiling of professional sport. And I think that is probably the biggest problem that we see with retired athletes getting into depression. There's a lot of suicides or getting into drugs, whatever it may be, is they're chasing that natural high that you have to accept. You were lucky to get it,
Yeah.
but you got to move on now. It's not happening again. In my opinion, I'd love to someone to change my mind on that and be like, go do this. You're going to feel just as good. I'd be all over it. I'll try the cold water, the sauna, the running, the weightlifting, the supplements. I try everything. It's not getting there. But it's still, I'm in a good place. You just got to accept that I'm not going to be getting at that Superman space anymore.
Well, exactly. That is very true, and yeah, it's hard to recreate that like situation. Yeah, it might be that it's different wins that present themselves now, or yeah, but at least you've got those memories to look back on and to to think about and things, which yeah is so amazing.
I will say at this point, obviously I've got 3 kids, and when they were born, I felt great. It's
Insert that now.
just in
Yeah.
case, yeah, I've got to put that in there now in case you ever watch it back when I'm younger, or the missus watches. But that's a totally different feeling, really. I just had to get it in there,
Of
but
course.
it's a totally different feeling. Obviously, I was ecstatic when the kids were born, and I'm ecstatic every time I see them. But it doesn't make you feel like a boss man god where everyone's shouting your name and all that. You don't get the nurses chanting you.
I love that. Yeah, that's a good little segue, man. That's good. So yeah, back to your first business then, and like personal training and things. How scary was that to go from this, professional athlete to shit? I'm starting my own business. I'm my own boss. I've got to source clients and do the thing and all that type of stuff. How did you cope with that?
You see me muddling through a lot of the time, I think, mate. It's scary. It is really scary because you got to think you're going from a place where you're told where to be, what to eat, what to do, what to wear, how to conduct yourself, maybe being interviewed. Everything is taken care for you. So going into the real world, you've got to all of a sudden it was like, wow, I'm responsible for me. I've got to conduct myself. I've got to get a diary. I've got to get a list of things to do. I can't just roll out of bed every day and be like, right, where are we going? Who's organised what for us today? So yeah, it was really scary, and it was a pressure and stress level that I'd never experienced before because you're playing sport. Your money's coming in all the time. You've got your income and everything's taken care of. But then if you're not on it as a self-employed individual, your family suffers, everything suffers. Pressure. I mean, a lot of people say, "Oh, you must be used to pressure playing professional sport." That's good pressure. This was like could be negative pressure that I started to feel, thinking I need to generate more business, I need to do more, I need to be more organized, I need to be delivering a better service. So the pressure was real, and I struggle to probably still do in terms of structuring a day. I mean, I would really like to have a coach follow me around all day and tell me what to do. Not in the sporting aspect, but for business now. Just to take that away because it's on your responsibility now. It's like, what should I do today? Should I do that task or that task? And you can get that decision paralysis where you didn't have that playing sport. You didn't have an option. That's what you're doing. That's what you're eating. This is what we're doing. And so yeah, there's a totally different type of pressure that I feel and still do feel. And it's about honing that, I think, and turn into a positive energy rather than a hide behind the curtains pressure type of thing. You gotta learn to work with it rather than try and fight against it.
Definitely, I would like to learn how to use it more positively.
Me too. Totally good game, but yeah, sometimes I'm flapping and listening to my own advice. But yeah, different pressure totally.
What was the jump then to actually go and start it? Was there like a conversation you had with yourself where you're like, should I get a job or should I take this risk to start my own business? And what would you say to those people who are on the fence between should I get a job or should I follow my dream and start a business?
I would say, well, you only get one shot on this earth, as far as we know. So for me, it was I'd spent 20 years being told what to do, where to be, what to do. I wanted a little bit of, I want to do what I want to do. I want to follow my dreams. I want my timetable to be flexible so I can go and pick the kids up in school and do what I want and live every day like I want to live it, not on someone else's terms. So this is a total personal view of it. But for me, being employed, going from a professional athlete to being employed at the bottom somewhere was going to be too much of a hit on my ego. If I'm honest with you, it was going to be too much of a hit to be the T-boy, if you like. I didn't want to do that. So that put me off from day one. And then as I've done more of this self-employed work myself, I like it. And I couldn't imagine going back to being told what to do again. And it's just not for me, but it's for some people. It works with some of the happiest people around our employees. It's different strokes for different folks. It's just not for me. Never say never, but I don't think it ever would be.
No, I think it's a great perspective. I love that. Yeah, you've only get one shot. Take your shot, and even if it doesn't work out, have no regrets with that. And you're right as well, though. People do have that choice. Some are suited to the office and getting told what to do, and then they go home and they watch Netflix and lie in, and that's a life, and they enjoy that life, and that's great. Then there's other people who want the choice, and that's the trade off. Making those high pressure decisions, but they're your decisions, and you can choose all that sort of thing. So it's trade offs, isn't it? And what? So we met in 2019, and we both had kind of personal training businesses or health and fitness businesses. Some of my fondest memories were us either training together or just having crack, or or trying to do sales calls when neither of us wanted to. And honestly, I love thinking about those moments. I say that just because we both ended up working in jobs that are with people, and we've got to source clients and income, and you have to be the face of the business a lot. And to link that back to what we were saying, we were allowed on the sports pitch, but not as loud in other areas. How did you find that, getting into business and having to be the face and having to introduce yourself to all these people and make cold calls sometimes and all that type of stuff?
Yeah, you say the fondest memories. Yeah, they were absolute classic times back in 2019, but those sales calls, those calls when we used to sit there and bounce around, that was minging. I mean, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. Not a clue. List of numbers, phone them up. Horrendously uncomfortable and nervous on the phone. No one is ever going to buy anything off us going in like that. That was a big learning curve. Because I think probably at that stage I was still a little bit of blind ignorance or arrogance that I played ice hockey. I'm just going to ring this person. They're going to be like, "Oh yeah, I'd love to sign up to your program." And it was a big shock that no one's really asked about who you are in that space. It's what you can do for them, and appreciating that when you're a business owner is not about who you are or what you've done. It doesn't matter. If I'm going to use a service or buy a product, I don't really care who's sourcing it or selling it, who's advising on it. It's what they can do for me. So getting that understanding in your head, it's not about you, it's about them, was the biggest penny drop moment for me, to get away from that uncomfortable cold call.
It made it easier doing it with someone. Like you'd call 100%. One, then I'd call one, then you'd call, do back and forward. Yeah, it was dreadful, absolutely dreadful. I don't think that's something that I don't know. Do you think are some people just good at that? I don't know, or you can learn it.
They are. Some people are good at it. I don't think I'll ever be good at it. We actually hired someone here for a while that was just, his target was to ring like 100 businesses a day and try and introduce us, and he loved it. Loved it. He loved his job. He's gone somewhere else to do the same thing now. So there's definitely people out there that are made for doing that, made for being uncomfortable and being nervous on the phone. I don't know what's wrong with them, but there's definitely people out there that are suited to it.
That is great for that person, having confidence to do that. But it's not all bad. Like I said, we had some great times. You obviously had some great clients as well. What were some of the fond memories from being a personal trainer?
When you make a difference in someone's life is the biggest thing in that space. Like a couple of clients that were type 2 diabetic, and after a couple of years training, we reversed and got them off the medication. The life improved, and you're just like, yes, that's what I do it for. And it just gives you a great feeling. That's definitely the takeaways. And you know what, personal trainer I had a blast all the time. I was never too serious with it. laughing and joking around all the time. Like, I don't think I'd really grown up. I was still that hockey player guy, just, oh, every day is a blast. How am I going to have fun today? Have a laugh with these clients. And I just enjoyed it. It was a real low pressure role to have, other than those sales calls, which you got to get sales somewhere in that game. But yeah, it was good. It was good. It just fizzled out for me.
Yeah. At what point, again, similar to the ice hockey question, at what point did you realise that it was time to start thinking about other things outside of the personal training world?
It probably started dawning on me when we were hammering through those. I think one of those days we messed around, done a Facebook advert, and I'd got like 170 people to call. And I rattled through them all in a couple of days and didn't get one sign up. And I was like, right,
Right.
there's something not on here. I've gone 0 for 170. The stats in the sports field on that, you'd be losing your jobs. I thought, right, maybe it's time to move on. And there was opportunities for me as a result from playing in sport, like a Game Plan Financial, whether or ex-athletes. So I thought, why not give it a go? So I started training and getting the qualifications whilst I was still doing the personal training, almost dipping my toe in the water. And I realised that I was probably going to be better in this role, and it's going to make me grow up more and provide a better life for my family than hammering away on those sales calls with personal training, and it just made the transition easier. And then of course COVID came along, which threw the personal training space right up in the air. I started trying to do it online and doing the videos, and I was working a hell of a lot for not a great return. And then it was at that point when I was starting to get qualified in finance, and I thought, right, I'm gonna jump in and give this a go here. I felt like I could almost fall back into personal training if it didn't work. I think I could do that, so I took the gamble, and it definitely paid off.
What is that training like then? From what I hear, it's quite intense and obviously very challenging. And you said at one point you didn't have, after school, you hadn't really studied apart from your personal training qualifications. Did you have to overcome any limiting beliefs to, look at these like new financial management kind of textbooks or exams? And yeah, how did you deal with that?
I felt like I didn't belong at all, probably for the first year. Every time I was on a group call with other advisors, I was just like, all these people have real jobs. They've worked for 20 years. They know stuff. I've done nothing. And I felt like I didn't get it. And what it took, it was discipline again. I had to really knuckle down and not bore, I shouldn't say that, learn all the stuff. There's so much to learn, and I just thought the only way I would have had regret had I not went all in and just jumped and said, "This is not for me. I'm not as good as these other people." I just really buckled up and learned as much as I could, and I spent a lot of time outside of the courses learning stuff. So I could feel I was up to the same level of everyone else that had a little bit more work experience than me. But it was a challenge going back to studying that intensely. And it's a challenge learning things all the time. I think my brain was kind of switched off. I just at a happy level. It was comfortable for so many years that I had to get outside that comfort zone and start to absorb new information, meet new people, speak in different environments. It was uncomfortable. Nothing good comes without getting a little bit uncomfortable first of all, is what I learned. And I'm just so glad that I had a brave moment and decided to stick with it when it got testing.
Because how old are you then? Mid-30s?
Yeah, I'll be being kind, yeah, I'm around about mid-30s.
So for those people who want to make a career change and are like, I've left it too late, what advice would you give them?
No way, I don't think you've ever left it too late. I think if you have that attitude that you've left it too late, you're going to be living the rest of your life with regret. I think it's, what is it? What's this? This is the last Thursday of the week. Make the most of it. You know what I mean? It's going to be that sort of attitude. Because, like I said at the start, you only hear once. If you don't turn over every stone, explore everything that you want to do, for me, what's the point? You've got to. This is just a no-brainer. You've got to press on and do what you want to do. I'm a strong believer in that. Don't live with regrets. You win or you learn.
Changed, grinding on this new kind of venture. How did you overcome that imposter syndrome then? Because I can imagine being in the Zoom calls with all of these people and I'm not meant to be here. How did you persist with that? Because I think that's something a lot of people would turn away from.
Yeah, and to be honest, I probably wouldn't have pressed on like I did had it not been for Game Plan Financial, which is the brokerage that I run my business through, it's designed for retired athletes. So when I'm out on these meetings with all the financial advisors in their suits and looking all professional and feeling like they're above me, come back in house with game plan. We've got footballers, tennis players, rugby players, all in the same boat as me, and everyone felt the same. And it was like, right, we're all doing exactly the same as those other guys in the pinstripe suits. We had a different upbringing, if you like. So having the support in the network in game plan really helped to know that I wasn't alone in feeling how I was feeling. There was other people that I could bounce my feelings off, and it really helped to just give you that perseverance and confidence to keep going. Talk to these guys in pinstripe suits and not feel inferior, which I don't anymore. And looking back, I think it was very silly of me, and now I just feel like when I'm speaking with those people and I'm in a t-shirt and I'm in a pinstripe suit, it's just like, mate, you're boring. I don't know why I was scared of you 2 years ago. You're just an old financial advisor. I'm not going to start bashing them now, but yeah, I don't know why I was so intimidated to start, because I've had that support around me.
Definitely. That's great that you're at that point now, but I could totally understand as well how you might have been like, oh, no, I'm not in the pinstripe suit. They're just humans at the end of the day, aren't they? Just in a different shell. Where are you at with your studies now then, when it comes to, all of the different things that you've got going on?
Well, I haven't studied now for about 6 months, just because I've been purely so busy with business that I'm doing right now. There is possibly the start of next year, I'm going to look to take some more courses, but that's still 50-50 as to whether I can fit them in with the volume of business I'm doing at the moment. I would like to, and I will do one day. Just when that happens, I don't know. It's hard with a family and a mortgage and lots of bills to take a couple of days off from work and earning money to go and study, which is for your future self. So I want to get to a place where I can afford to take a couple of days and educate myself a little bit further, and I'm hoping that will be January, to do more exams, to branch out, to be able to offer more services to people. But yeah, it's a plan without a date at the moment.
Imagine if James from Lift Fitness just heard you've got too much business to be doing anything else. The
Yeah,
dream.
okay. Yeah, that would be the dream. Maybe I wouldn't be sitting here if Lift James had too many personal training clients to deal with, but that unfortunately wasn't the case. But yeah, it's a totally different game. Really, you can't really compare the personal training being busy with financial services being busy. Apples and pears, or I don't know what it is. No, not apples and pears.
Apples and
Comparing
oranges.
apples with oranges, I think is the phrase I was like. That's the one. Apples and pears instead. I'm trying to be unstoppable, and I can't keep the discipline. It's like, do I need a personal trainer? I haven't done it yet, but it's something that crosses my mind, because I'm definitely not tapped in on what's new and what's good for you these days. It seems to be changing all the time.
And what's your new perspective on entrepreneurship, on business, compared to the version of you in 2020? Is it a different kind of perspective on how you run your business?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think as personal trainer, I was tunnel vision. Need more clients. Need more clients. More clients equals more income, and that was the way I go. And like I said, financial services is different, but now it's not just one income stream. I'm not searching. Need more clients. Need more clients. It's you're doing different things, being part of networks where there's referrals to be made. You can help people out by introducing people. I wouldn't zone in on one thing, although it seems obvious on the face of it, like more clients is more money. Try and expand that and think, what else can you offer? Where else can you draw an income from by giving value? And I've definitely learned that now, that it's not a one horse race. There's a big 360-degree view, and quite often we're just looking one direction. So look at what else what you can offer, and other income streams for financial security.
Were you expecting life to be what it's like now for you, like before you started this financial journey? Did you have like an image in mind in a couple of years' time, or is it completely different from what you were expecting? Because I kind of have this image of what I think financial services looks like, but game plan is completely, it's upside down in all the good ways, compared to that. So yeah, I'm just wondering what you were expecting, before you actually jumped into it.
What was I expecting? I mean, when I first the idea first got floated to me, the first thought or image was like, no way, I haven't done maths. I struggle with maths at school. That's hard, but it's not like maths all the time. It's advising on various things. It's not just maths. So my image was, I probably thought that I was going to be wearing a suit until I'd came in the game plan and met everyone and realised that we're trying to disrupt financial services. We don't want to be those old guys in pinstripe suits. We're disrupting the industry and doing well at it. And so it's a lot more fun than I expected. I thought it was going to be a crunching numbers, boring all the time. But I guess it is what you make of it. And I try to make any calls or meetings or any work that I do a little bit fun. Just purely because, like I said, we only hear once. Why be miserable? I try to make every day fun, every client call fun. You've got to be serious sometimes, obviously, in financial services, but to make it fun. And I think my image, when I first heard joining in financial services, I thought, fucking hell, that sounds so boring and pen heavy and numbers heavy and admin heavy, but it's really not. It is what you make of it. It's like, don't like doing too much admin. These days you can outsource a lot of stuff quite easily and cost effective. So there's ways you can mold your life and your role into what you want, and being self-employed really helps that. That every day has got to be what you want to do, in my opinion, not what someone tells you, what someone else wants you to do.
Yeah, and I love that phrase you use, like you're disrupting the sector. I think that's such an exciting term. It might be hard to describe what that actually is, but yeah, what does that mean to you, to game plan, to the financial services?
Well, it means we're doing game plans, excelling really. All the advisors are excelling. I think people who are seeking financial services appreciate what we do, in that it's not going to be a robot sitting there being boring and crunching numbers. We take a more relaxed approach. I think every meeting starts informally. Everything's as informal as possible. Yeah, so we're disrupting it. We're not. I mean, we're not out of date. And I keep going back to these pinstripe suits. There's still lots of them out there that often will talk in financial mumble jumble that
Yeah,
people won't understand. And us as athletes, when we first started, we got all that stuff spat at us in the courses, and it was like, what? But
yeah,
there's a much more simple way of explaining things. You don't have to use trendy financial terms. You can explain it in layman's terms to people, and people appreciate that. And I think a lot of the other financial services out there are still a little bit robotic and
yeah.
banging terms of people that don't understand. And there's mis-selling, like we've had the PPI, all that stuff gone on. And I think it's purely because advisors regurgitating what they've learned in the course to the client, they don't understand, and everyone gets in trouble down the line. Keep it real, speak real, explain in a way that the client can understand, and it's having great success, and it's disrupting and pissing a lot of companies off that we can rock around in our sports clobber.
I'm with you. What about, how can other people do this in their own? Maybe they've got a business, or maybe just their life in general. Like, how can you be disruptive in a good way, like you guys are? Like, how can you disrupt? If someone is listening and they want to start a business, how do they disrupt the sector, or maybe they just want to change their own image, or how would they go about doing that?
I think it's just about, like, there's only one of you, right? So if
Yeah,
you can be true to yourself and behave how you want to behave and speak how you want to speak and do what you want to do, it's going to disrupt the industry, because there's not a lot of people out there that are just themselves in their roles. They put a front on, they do something. If you're just being yourself, and I might drop the odd F bomb and swear, I bet there's not many financial advice meetings go on where someone's dropping an F bomb, but it's just being real, and it disrupts, and it makes you happier because you're not putting the front on all the time, and it's going to piss a lot of other people off because they're like, yeah, I can't really say anything about them over there disrupting the industry because they're just being themselves. And that would be true to yourself and be as much of you as you can be. I think it's will disrupt things and give you success. Of course, you've got to have a level of bravery and confidence to do that, because everyone's a little bit, I myself certainly, a little bit fearful of being shut down when you're showing your true full self. But if you can take those knockbacks, like don't get too high, don't get too low, produce your natural self. You get knocked back, fair enough, that person wasn't for me, and move on quickly. Move on quickly. As soon as there's something that's a negative, move on as fast as possible and continue being yourself, speaking how you want to speak and behaving how you think, or how whatever falls out your mouth, basically, let it come out.
yeah. I love that, genuinely. I love the disruptive. It's something that I want to do better for sure. And I'm trying to figure out how to do that. But yeah, I think it's really inspiring, genuinely, to see what you're doing, to see what game plan's doing. Yeah, that word's so good for what you guys are doing, like disrupting the sector. It is. The results are shown, which is superb. Speaking of inspiring, so I went to game plan 4 months ago, and obviously we had that coffee and that chat and stuff. And since then, I've completely changed a lot of what I do. But that was down to seeing you and what you've been doing, and all the changes you'd made and all that type of stuff. And I think you've been like pretty open with mental health, and like how you deal with your own mental health in such a good way. And it's just kind of changing the conversation a little bit more to kind of health and fitness and mental health. How important is your mental health when it comes to you being unstoppable?
It's the biggest thing for me. I think if you feel good in your own brain, everything else works better. I don't hide the fact that I have mental health struggles. I have done all the way through my playing career, through personal training. I still have them now. An example would be this week, Tuesday. I felt absolutely horrendous. I had a rough day Monday, and I just down tools, phone off, laptop off, out of office on. I'm not doing it today because I've learned that on those days if you're feeling a bit anxious, if you push yourself through too much, I'm going to be burnt out if I do that too many times. So now when it happens, nip it in the bud, time off, spend time with the wife, spend time with the kids, nourish the soul, good sleep next day. That's not happening again. I'm better today. It still comes and goes. I'm better at recognizing the triggers and understanding what I need to consume in terms of food, digitally, fluids, what I'm doing day to day. I'm very conscious of every hour of every day what I'm doing to not have a knock-on effect the next day, to make the mental health rear its ugly head again. Because I've been in some dark places, and yeah, pity goes out to anyone that suffers with that. It's hard to develop your own coping mechanisms. There's not a great deal of help, in my opinion, from the NHS. I'm sure I'll get bashed for saying that, but there's not. The support they offered me was, I could just say atrocious, and I'd probably say I feel a little bit worse because of the treatments that they put me on. So really, you're on your own to find out. So there's a ton of research and the supplementation and lifestyle choices, everything. That's probably a hobby of mine now. If I've got a spare minute, I'm on my phone. How can I improve this element of my life? How can I sleep better? How can I have more energy? How can I be less dehydrated? How can I just be better performing? And it's all from how the brain feels.
What's been your biggest way to cope with those mental health challenges? Like, what are some of your coping mechanisms that you implement to make sure that you can heal yourself going forward?
So I have a supplement stack that's supporting the brain and all the research I can do. I have quite a bit, like an old man's pill tub for morning and evening on supplements. I really think that helps with the peaks and troughs and keeping the brain level with the supplements I'm taking. The working out that I mentioned earlier when I said I can't go to work unless I've done a workout. I'm purely too anxious to go to work unless I've done that workout in the morning. Doing that, what I eat, I'm very conscious of the biscuits that I used to smash through in back in the day when we were personal training. I know that if I have a carb blowout like that, I'm going to be anxious. I might as well go on a stag do and drink 400 pints over a weekend as eating, binging out on carbs, because I'm going to feel anxious the next day. So I know what to eat to make me feel better, but it's all just been trial and error on what suits me. So that's why I'm reluctant to say, take this, and this, and do this,
Sure.
this, and this. I think it's different to everyone. I've gone through supplements galore to find out what works, and I'm still tweaking it all the time with the stack that I take, but I feel like I've got it pretty good at the moment, to level that brain out, because what I don't want to do is get to the point where I've got to go to the doctor and you're in there for 5 minutes, here, take these pills. That is the worst solution to me. It works for some people, obviously. It's not for me, and I'll never go down that route again, touch wood. But yeah, it's micromanaging every hour of every day, and I can do that subconsciously now, knowing that I've always empty now, and I've always got a cup of water. I'm always rehydrating. I realise if I don't drink enough, the brain's sluggish. If the brain's sluggish, I start to worry about why is it sluggish? I cannot do my job anymore. So there's so
Yeah.
much goes into it, but yeah, sleep, nutrition, hydration, and exercise, sunlight. Though it's based around those things, but it's micromanaging your life to make sure that you don't get triggered or anything to make myself feel anxious anymore.
I think anxiety is like, it's such a weird thing. Like the last 12, 12 to 18 months, I've really suffered with it. Like, for the first time, I hadn't suffered with it before, particularly like 2023. There's a certain thing, so my anxiety is attached to like me feeling like I'm not progressing in my life the way I want to be progressing, and like I'm running out of time to make the impact I want to make, and that leads to like having panic attacks, and that led me to then seeing you and the going on the decaf and all that sort of thing. So I really know what my anxiety's tied into. And I know, like, if I'm not doing certain things, links to that, say I procrastinate, I then think not doing the things that I should be doing to move my life forward, and then it's that whole circle. Is there something specific that has been on that sparks your anxiety, or is it kind of just general things?
I can't drink alcohol anymore. That would spark my anxiety. I don't drink alcohol anymore. Even just 2 beers, I'm going to be so anxious. So I don't drink alcohol. I haven't for about 6 months now. I can't do it. I get too anxious. But touching on what you said before, when you feel like you're not progressing, is a huge worry. If I have a couple of rough weeks at work, or I'm overwhelmed with stuff to do and I can't do any of it because I'm overwhelmed, I get anxious. And that's all my own doing. I've got too much work to do. I'm not doing it. I'm worrying about not doing it, but I'm still not doing it. And it just gets worse and worse. It's like, I need a word myself, get out, get sauna and a cold dip and clear the brain and figure out that you're creating the anxiety yourself. And it's my behaviour that creates most of my anxiety, whether that's going out for a pint, which I don't do anymore, or overeating makes me anxious, or skipping a little task one day. I'll not do that, I'll do that tomorrow. You do that a couple of days in a row, I'm behind the 8 ball, and it's like, no, what have I done? I've skived these 2 days. I'm an anxious mess now. And then you just got to rinse and repeat, do something healthy, eat well, get a sleep, take some time off and get back into it. But yeah, it's definitely, I think it's probably a universal thing. If you feel like you're stuck still and not progressing, you're going to get anxious about it. And it's probably a good trait to have, because if you didn't, you just stay still your whole life, right? You just be comfortable being mediocre and not want to press on at all.
Well, James, it has been amazing to have you on the show. Thank you so much for your time, mate.
Absolutely, mate. I mirror what you just said. That was an absolute blast in your gym down there. And I think there's probably a lot of lessons learned then in amongst the laps and the tears and the struggles. There was a lot of life lessons learned to take away from that. So I'll be forever appreciative of that time, and for you giving me that space in your gym to do that, and to grow as people, and to learn that we're not cold callers.
It's always so great to touch base with you and to hear about all the amazing and inspiring and exciting things that you've got going on. And to everybody who's listening, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed this chat with James Hutchinson. And remember, your introversion isn't the thing that will hold you back. It is the thing that will catapult you towards greatness. Until next time, stay unstoppable.